All right. So, in order to do the next section of what we have to do in this chapter, Josh, calm yourself.
I ain't saying that.
What was that?
Right.
All right. So, in order to do what we need to do next, you have to be able to list out winning coalitions. Okay. So, first I'm going to start with let's list all coalitions. So, a coalition is just somebody that votes the same way. So, you can have coalitions of just one people. So, I can have player 1 as a coalition all by themselves. I can have player 2 and player 3 all by themselves. So those are 3 different coalitions. Then I can start pairing people up. I can put 9 and 8 together. I can put 9 and 7 together. I can put 8 and 7 together. So there's your coalitions of 2 people. Finally, you've got a grand coalition. That's everybody put together. Okay, so if it makes it easier, list all of your coalitions first. Okay, then you need to go through and pick which ones win. Okay, 9 can't reach 15, so that coalition's not a winning one. 8 can't reach 15, so that's not a winning coalition. And neither is 7. So no one can win on their own. But when I start pairing them up together, if I put 9 and 8 together, that gives me 17. So yes, they win. They're a winning coalition. 9 and 7 give me 16. They're a winning coalition. 8 and 7 give me 15. They're a winning coalition. And 9, 8, and 7 is a winning coalition. So by the time it's all said and done, you should be able to write out just the winners. Okay? But if you need to write them all out, do so. That's okay. The problem is the more people that you put in, the more coalitions you have to write out. So let's take a look at number 2. Can anyone win on their own? No. So let's start listing groups of 2 that can win. Who can I pair together in groups of 2? Any other groups of 2? No. So then my last one, 10, 6, and 2. Okay. Please don't ever forget about your winning coalition. Take a look at number 5. Anybody on their own? No. Do I have any pairs that can win? No. So I got to start with my groups of 3. So we start 4, 3, and 2. I can do 4, 3, and 1. Any more groups of 3? No. And then my last one should always be the Grand Coalition. Okay, so every group should have at least one winning coalition. The Grand always has to be there. Okay, take a look at number 6. We're trying to reach 10. Can I do that? Anybody by themselves?
No.
Pairs of 2?
No.
3s?
No.
The only one I have here is my winning coalition. And that's okay. It's okay to only have one. Hold up. I left this on this entire time that I've been out and it still has battery. That's impressive. Let me know when you're ready.
That's nothing compared to my Beats battery.
Oh, yeah? What do we have for number 3? You got 2 pairs. What are they?
8
8 and 6, 8 and 4. And then finally our grand coalition of 8, 6, 4. We're going to move over to number 7 because 4 and 8 are kind of long. Yeah, there's lots of those. What about number 7?
20.
20 can win all by themselves. We're going to learn in a little bit. They're called the dictator. Okay, so then we've got groups of 2. 20 and 8. 20 and 4. And then our grand coalition. I think the biggest one on your test has 4 players. You won't see anything as big as 4 and 8. So number 4, I had 9, 8, and 7, 9, 8, and 4, 9, 8, and 3, 9, 6, 7. I could do 9, 7, and 4, 9, 7, and 3.
Wait. I have less than that.
8, 7, and 4 will give you 15. 8, 7, and 4 also works. Do you see any more groups of 3 that I may have missed? Number 4, bottom left-hand corner.
This is that homework junk.
Yeah, that homework junk.
Here you go.
Wait, first you going over it.
I already checked it.
No, you did.
Checked it.
You ain't check mine.
I swear I checked it.
Nah, because I happened to go to that little media center junk. You remember that day? I ain't know the homework. And then the next day you weren't here, so I couldn't. So,
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
I got you. Anybody else groups of 3? All right, my groups of 4, I had 9, 8, 7, 4, 9, 8, 7, 3, 9, 8, 4, 3,
I wish I had a blanket.
8, 7, 4, 3.
I could fall asleep in this chair.
Did I miss any groups of 4 that you can see? And then finally, the Grand Coalition, 9, 8, 7, 4, and 3.
I wish I had my wireless charger.
And then over here, I had one group of 2, 15 and 12. And then I had 15, 12, and 8. 15, 12, and 7, 15, 12, and 4, 15, 8, and 7, 15, 8, and 4, 15, 7, and 4, and 12, 8, and 7. Those were all of my groups of 3s. Did I miss any groups of 3s that anybody found?
My value would go off. Before they go.
Okay, my groups of 4s then were 15, 12, 8, and 7, 15, 12, 8, and 4, 15, 12, 7, and 4, 15, 8, 7, and 4, whoops, 12, 8, 7, and 4. And then I had my Grand Coalition, 15, 12, 8, 7, and 4. Double check mine against yours. Please make sure I did not miss any. There's a good chance that I did. Like I said, the more that they add in, the harder this becomes. And again, I think the biggest one you'll see on your test has 4, not 5. So if you can do everything up to 3 and 7, you should be golden. Any questions on coming up with winning coalitions? All right. So, unfortunately, there is no set way to find the exact number of winning coalitions besides just going through the motions. Okay. So, some of the strategies that you want to do when you're writing these out, my suggestion to you is start with the largest weight. Okay. Even though order does not matter when you're writing these out, it makes it a whole lot easier if you start with your bigger number first. Okay, so always start with your largest weight. Look to use the same number of players. What I mean by that is do your groups of 1, then do your groups of 2, and then 3, and then 4, so on and so forth. So don't jump around, okay? Try to get everybody that can win on their own, everybody that can win in a group of 2, everybody that can then win in a group of 3, so on and so forth. So, while you may not be able to determine how many winning coalitions you have, you can determine how many possible coalitions, winning and losing, that you have. Okay, if I only have 1 player, there's only 1 coalition. It's that player all by itself. If I throw in 2 players, I now have 3 coalitions. Player 1 can be by themselves, player 2 can be by themselves, or I can pair them up together. Okay, so again, all these coalitions may not be winners, but they are coalitions. As you move up 3 players, there are 7 of them. 4 players, there are 15 of them. And 5 players, there are 31 of them. So those last 2 that we just did, if we would have listed all of them out, there would have been 31 possible. Not 31 winning, but 31 you could have written out. This is actually a formula. So for the total possible coalitions, you want to use the formula 2 raised to the n minus 1, where n equals the number of players. Okay. 2 to the n minus 1, where n equals the number of players.
Where do we put that?
Did I not leave room?
Yeah.
Stick it somewhere on there in that chart. Oh, yeah, right here. Where it says total number of possible coalitions from n players. You're supposed to put the formula right there. Oh, I guess I had it up here too. My bad. Didn't pay attention. It's supposed to go here. Okay, so if all they want is how many possible coalitions you have, you just plug it in. So, number 1, 6 players, so 2 to the 6 minus 1. So with 6 players, I've got 63 coalitions I could write out. Watch what a little bump to 8 players does. 2 to 8, 2 to the 8th minus 1. 255. It takes a gigantic jump. Okay, so take a look at this one. If I had 8 players, how many coalitions specifically don't use the 8th player? So if I start with 8 and I take that 8th player away, how many players do I actually have left then? 7. So when I'm removing a player, that means my formula comes down to 2 to the 7th minus 1. Which means I have 127 possible coalitions. I'm going to talk about dictators and dummies, and we'll be done for today. All right. The last concept we need to talk about so we can get into dictators, dummies, and veto power is finding out who is critical. So when you're trying to find a player that is critical, 1, you have to list all your winning coalitions. So you've got to get good at that. Okay, you've got to practice that, practice that, practice that. So I've listed some winning coalitions. In order to be critical, if I remove you or remove that player from the winning coalition, and that coalition is now losing, that player is critical. So, in other words, 10 and 8. If I go ahead and I remove 10, can 8 win?
No.
No. 10 is a critical player then. So 10 is critical. Underline it, highlight it, circle it, I don't care. Okay? You do the same thing with every player in every coalition. So if I get rid of 8, can 10 win?
No.
No, which means 8 is also critical. It is okay to have more than one critical player in a coalition. If I remove 10, can 6 win? No, 10 is critical. If I remove 6, can 10 win? No, 6 is critical. If I remove 8, can 6 win? No, critical. If I remove 6, can 8 win? No, critical. Okay, down here is where you're going to start to get into some non-criticals. So if I remove 10, can 8 and 3 win?
No.
No, 10 is critical. If I remove 8, can 10 and 3 win? No, 8 is critical. But look what happens when I remove 3.
Yes.
10 and 8 can win on their own, so 3 is not critical. Same thing with 10, 6, and 3. 6 and 3 can't win, 10 is critical. 10 and 3 can't win, 6 is critical. But 10 and 6 can win, so 3 is not critical. 6 and 3 can't win, bless you, so 8 is critical.
Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. Thank you.
8 and 3 can't win, so 6 is critical. 8 and 6 can win, though, so 3 is not critical. Finally, the last one. If I remove 10, 8, 6, and 3 win, so 10 is not critical. As soon as 10 is not critical, no one else is critical in that coalition. This is why I told you to do it from the top number down to the lowest number, because it'll work like that every time. As soon as you find a player that's not critical, everybody else that comes after them is no longer critical because they can win on their own. questions? Do you want to try underlining criticals in 2 and 3 first before we run into that?
Yes.
Oh, could you take off more than just one number?
At a time?
Yeah.
No. Always one player at a time. So try 2 and 3 real fast. And then we'll talk about our 3 power definitions. We just need to all stop dying.
I didn't have a cough though. I just had sneeze. That's all I did this weekend. I just sneeze. Jay, you're giving out uniforms?
If I can get uniforms from Mr. Beverly, I have yet to get in touch with Mr. Beverly. But I need to at least get everybody signed up for a uniform number so we know who's getting who.
Or no more?
Brenda's gonna wait because seniors are gonna get their picks first,
Oh, right.
and then juniors are gonna get their picks.
Really? Oh, I hate when they do that.
Right.
Yeah, that's okay. Kind of like how they do the girls' tennis jackets right when you quit tennis. Years I've been on that team and they had to do that.
I'm gonna try to get the returning players first. So like I'll do the returning seniors, which I think everybody that's a senior this year is returning. And then I'll do the returning juniors, returning sophomores, returning sophomores, and then go back through and do the juniors.
I need to get new workout shoes. I need those. All right, next time when you order from Domino's, guess who I ain't making it? Guess it's just a look at
Ew. That's one thing, you don't mess with people that prepare you.
I mean, I don't eat pizza. My brother.
I was gonna say, she's always eating like carrots and celery. She's a good kid. Oh, she's a healthy one.
Hey, you admit it. She said she was a healthy weirdo. I got you.
Oh my goodness. How are we doing?
Oh, I stopped after the first one. Only because I already didn't do it. Dude, you did 3 too. I agree. You need something. Yeah.
All right. Number 2. Who is critical in 4, 3, and 1? All of them. Okay. Think about it. What does 4, 3, and 1 give me?
8.
8. If the entire total is what your quota is, every last person in there is critical. Okay. 4, 3, and 2. Who's critical? All of them. What about 4, 3, 2, and 1?
4, 3, 1.
I had just 4, 3. So let's go through this one. If I remove 4, 3, 2, and 1 only give me 6. So 4 is critical. If I remove 3, 4, 2, and 1 only give me 7. So 3 is critical. But when I go to remove 2, 4, 3, and 1 give me 8. So 2 is no longer critical. And if 2 is not critical, that means 1 is not critical. Okay. So just be careful. Number 3, what about 8 and 6? Both. 8 and 4. 6 and 4. 8, 6, and 1. 8 and 6. 8, 6, and 4. They're all not critical. Good job. 8, 4, and 1. 8 and 4. 6, 4, and 1. 6 and 4. And what about 8, 6, 4, and 1? None of them. Perfect. All right. So as you can do this, you're golden for the power definitions. Okay. So we've got 3 power definitions. The first one is a dictator. Your dictator is the player's weight is greater than or equal to the quota. Okay. If you're a dictator, you have more power and you can win all by yourself. $18 is your quota. Who's my dictator? 20. So player 1 with a power of 20 is your dictator. They can win all by themselves. If they decide they want to say yes, guess what? That's what's going to happen. Okay. We have some people called dummies. Any player whose weight will never affect the outcome of voting. Okay. So, special case, if you ever have a dictator, everybody else is a dummy. So if you look at that first example from the dictator, player 2 with a weight of 10 and player 3 with a weight of 5, they're dummies. They don't even matter. Whatever player 1 says is going to go because they're a dictator. Okay, let me actually go back to this.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah. So because player 1 can pass anything all by themselves, that means player 2 and player 3, they don't matter. No. Yeah. So the player with 10 and 5, it doesn't matter what they vote. They can go against player 1 and player 1's still going to take it. Okay. So they're dummies. If we go back to this one, what number was never, ever, ever underlined? 1. They're your dummy. So in order to be a dummy, okay, you can have no power. You're never, ever critical. So 1 is a dummy in this situation. It's not necessarily, I mean, yeah, it's always going to be the smallest number, but there could always be more than 1 dummy. Is there a dummy in number 1? 3. 3 is going to be your dummy. What about number 2? They can never, ever be underlined in anything. Do I have a player that was never, ever underlined?
No.
No. There is no dummy in number 2, and that's okay.
Wait.
In order to be a dummy, it can never be underlined in anything that's critical. So 4 was underlined at least once, 3 was underlined at least once, 2 was underlined at least once, 1 was underlined at least once.
Okay.
So you have no dummies there. Okay. All right, the last person, veto power. The quota total cannot be met unless the player votes in favor of. So whenever you have a coalition where their total is just the quota, everybody has veto power. So in other words, in order to have veto power, you must always be critical. Always critical. I guess we should put here, never critical. Okay, so a dummy is never critical or never underlined. Veto power, you're always critical or you're always underlined, no matter where you're at. So let's go back to these 2 again. Nobody has veto power, number 1, because nobody was critical in this last one. If you take a look at number 2, though, player 1 and player 2, that was your weight of 4 and your weight of 3. These have veto power. Every coalition that 4 was in, it was underlined. Every coalition that 3 was in, it was underlined. So player 1 and player 2 have veto power. They were always critical. Do we have anybody with veto power in number 3?
No.
No. 8 wasn't underlined here. 6 wasn't underlined here. 4 wasn't underlined here. 1 wasn't underlined here. So you don't have anyone with veto power. All right. Let's practice just a little bit more. I think we've got, what, 6 examples? All right. So, first off, example 1. I need to list out every winning coalition. So, do I have anybody that can win by themselves? 12. Groups of 2. 12 and 5. 12 and 4.
No, it's just those 2.
Just those 2. 5 and 4 cannot win. And then finally, my grand coalition of 12, 5, and 4. Okay, let's underline who's critical in each one. Well, if you're the only one there, guess what? You're critical. If I remove you, there are no votes. Who's critical out of 12 and 5?
12.
What about 12 and 4?
12.
What about 12, 5, and 4?
12.
Everybody good there? Do I have a dictator?
12.
Okay. Player 1 is your dictator. Try to get used to calling them player 1 and not just 12. Okay. Because you'll end up with some players that have the same exact numbers. Do I have any dummies?
Yes, player 2 and 3.
Players 2 and 3. 5 and 4 are your dummies. They're never underlined. Does anybody have veto power?
The player 1.
Player 1. They're always underlined. They've got veto. Let's jump across to example 4. Okay. So, the biggest thing, when you have more than one of the same number, okay, I would sub these and make this 5A and 5B. Okay.
Well, technically, isn't it already like separated?
With player 1 and player 2?
Yeah.
But when you write them out, because we write them out with numbers instead of player 1, player 2, I don't want you to get them mixed up. Okay. Because I've got, no one can win on their own, but I can put player 1 with player 3. I can put player 1 with player 2, or I can put player 2 with player 3. Okay. I don't want you to miss that second 5 and 1 because 2 of the players have the same numbers. So I always make them subs with letters. If you want to just label them player 1, player 2, player 3 and do it that way, that works too. So you should have those 3. And then my grand coalition of 5A, 5B, and 1. Okay. Who's critical in 5A and 1?
Both of them.
Both. One can't win without the other. 5 and 1 give me 6. What about 5A and 5B?
Both.
Both. 5B and 1?
Both.
Both. And 5A, 5B, and 1.
5A.
Yeah.
No, wait.
None of them. If I take away 5A, 5B, and 1 can win all by themselves. So none of them are critical here. Do I have a dictator?
No.
No. Any dummies?
No.
No. Everybody's been underlined at least once. Does anybody have veto power? No. Any questions? All right, let's take a look at example 2. I need winning coalitions first.
Both.
14 and 8,
Both.
14 and 7. You said what? 8 and 7?
Oh,
And your grand coalition. Awesome.
I went ahead and skipped.
Did you skip to this part?
I skipped to the coalition and then stuff like that. So. Oops.
Who's critical in 14 and 8?
Both.
Both. 14 and 7.
Both.
8 and 7.
Both.
What about 14, 8 and 7?
None.
None. So, dictator.
None.
None. Dummies.
None.
Veto power.
None.
Woo! Example 5. My goal is to reach 6. What's my winning coalition?
4-1-1.
4-1-1. There is no other winning coalitions here. 4-1 and 1. Who's critical? All of them.
Oh, yeah.
All of them. No one can win without the other. They total 6 altogether. Do I have a dictator?
No.
Dummies.
No.
Veto power.
No.
All of them. Every last one of them have veto power.
Yeah, after that, I low-key feel smart.
You low-key feel smart?
Yeah, because
I'm so excited that you feel smart.
everyone was like, nah. And I was like, yeah.
All right, 2 more and we're finished. Example 3, winning coalitions. 4 and 2. And the grand coalition. Fantastic. Who's critical out of 4 and 2? 4, 2, and 1.
4-2-2.
4 and 2. Do I have a dictator?
No.
No. Dummies.
1.
Player 3.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
Player 3 with your weight of 1. Listen, I'm going to know the difference, but just try to get in the habit of calling them player 3. Does anybody have veto power?
Player 1 and player 2.
Player 1 and player 2 have veto power. They're always critical. Alrighty. Last one, friends.
We do that one ourselves.
Go for it.
We need
I'm totally on it. You were like over there rocking the house today. You are smart. My sleeping friend over here isn't though. Hey, friend. Hi, Cozy. Somebody's gonna have to get him up to speed. And then Josh just rocking out his left over there. Oh, Joshua. I love you, Joshua.
Love you too, Miss Lou.
I need everybody to just get healthy. Yes. That's what's gonna get through this last one first. I don't know if it'll help, but I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 winning coalitions.
For what? For what?
For example, 6. I had 6. 2 pairs, 3 groups of 3, and then the Grand Coalition. Double check yourselves. I have 2
The time
pairs.
is now 10:56. The 11th graders taking the ACT last name Pacheco through Stiller should be in the media center at this point. 11th graders Pacheco through Stiller should be in the media center at this point. Teachers, please check your email if you have questions.
I had 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 3, and the Grand Coalition.
How did you say how many groups of
3.
This is 3. Oh.
Yes. There's more up in the top of the cupboard.
Oh, that's, yeah, I forgot.
I will give you a little bit of hint on your test on how many winning coalitions there are, so you at least have a goal that you're fighting for. Did everybody find the 6th one now?
Yep.
So we had 8 and 4, 8 and 3, 8, 4, 3, 8, 4, 1, 8, 3, 1, and 8, 4, 3, 1. Who's critical out of 8 and 4? Both. What about 8 and 3? What about 8, 4, and 3?
8, 4.
Should be 8, 4. If I remove 4, oh wait, no, just 8. You're right, I lied. Just 8.
How's it just 8?
Because 8 is 1 with 3.
When I go ahead and I remove 4, 8 and 3 give me 11. So they can win without 4.
Oh.
8, 4, and 1 though should be 8 and 4. 8, 3, and 1.
8, 3.
8 and 3. And 8, 4, 3, 1.
8.
Should be just 8. So do I have a dictator?
No.
No. Do I have any dummies?
Player 4.
Player 4. And anybody with veto?
Player 1.
Player 1. Player 1 is critical in everyone, so they have veto. The 8, 4, 3, and 1. So when I go ahead, if I take away 8, 4, 3, and 1 only give me 8. So 8's critical. But when I go to take away 4, 8, 3, and 1 gives me 12. So they can win without 4, which means 4 is not critical. Okay? Good question. Questions from anybody else? All right.
We're done for today.
You should have most of this assignment already completed
No.
because I asked you to do 1 through 6 on your book pages.
When?
We didn't know it was done.
When?
We didn't know what it was.
Oh, come on.
Right,
Nobody
that's like-
emailed me. I'm sitting there dying on that
Because you said
phone.
you don't even know.
Right, and we want to email while you while you was ready.
Who emails?
We was right about our project. You made you go back.
Who emails? It's all about tech. Listen, some of y'all had me on remind. You could have sent me a reminder.
Honestly, didn't even see any of this work. I just saw a project, so.
All right.
And I turned it on Wednesday.
3 days.
So, in Canvas, under chapter 2, you will find chapter 2 book pages. I need you to complete 1 through 9, 41, and 42. Okay, you have the rest of the period to work on this. Yes, Joshua, you may.